Former First Lady Michelle Obama famously said in her 2016 DNC speech that, quote, "I wake up every morning in a house that was built by slaves." She was absolutely correct. If you look on a timeline, the history of the United States is still fairly brief, and slavery was abolished a mere 155 years ago. It wasn't just the White House that was built using slave labor, by the way. The building that serves as our country's political center, the United States Capitol, was built and rebuilt using slave labor after its sacking in the War of 1812. Although most northern states had abolished slavery by 1804, it's had its fair share of symbols erected using slave labor. If you're familiar with the Trinity Church in New York's financial district, you may not know that the clergy rented enslaved people to build its iconic spires, as well as the wall that used to snake down what we now know as Wall Street. Many of our forefathers were enslavers. Thomas Jefferson's entire property in Charlottesville, Virginia, Monticello, was built and run by enslaved people. Enslaved people also helped build our intellectual centers. Georgetown University, one of the country's oldest colleges, built most of its campuses after the sale of 272 enslaved people in the 1830s. Many schools with storied histories were built in part by enslaved people, including Harvard University's Law School and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That school's campus was maintained by slave labor until its abolishment in 1865. Poor record-keeping and indifference by early historians makes it nearly impossible to know every contribution made to these buildings, but there's no doubt about how they got built.
All right, Shalom. This is the brother Nahoya from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yashar Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. This Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse 1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all they looked for. All right, and I want to go into a lesson based on the clip you just saw. And I also want to grab this article, which is going into the same information. All right, because again, you know, a lot of our people have tried to forget about how we got here. All right, and what has actually happened to us while we were here and are here. All right, but the scriptures talk about the righteous men standing in great boldness. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. All right, against the face of such as have made no account of our labors. All right. I'm going to read it one more time. Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. Now, before he mentioned that, all right, when you watch the full article or the full piece that he did on this, you know, he mentioned the White House being built by slaves. All right. And we know this. This is some of the general information you get about what our people have contributed to the so-called landmarks, all right, of America, which is Babylon the Great. All right, I want to go through this, and this is from businessinsider.com, and this is a 2019 article, and it says 15 American landmarks that were built by slaves. All right, I'm going to just go down the line, all right? So I'm going to get down to the point. All right, so we dealt with the White House, right? Now, the next one is the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Now, I love this one because they give you these pictures so you can see it. All right, these are places that tourists go all the time. All right, and they never think or really take into account that Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, who are the children of Israel, their blood had to be shed for these things to happen. When they look at these monuments, they don't never look at them and say, wow, Negroes, you know, Latinos and Native Americans. Wow, they really contributed to our great country, so to speak. They don't never bring that into mind. They look at these things like this and they glory in their own wickedness. The things that they've done to our people, man. All right. I didn't even know that this Capitol building was built by slaves, man. All right, let's read some of it. It says the U.S. Capitol took more than 30 years to build from 1793 to 1826. While it's not clear how many slaves helped build it, a 2005 task force found slaves were definitely involved. Between 1795 and 1801, 385 payments were made to the owners of African American slaves. All right, so keep this in mind. All right, a lot of our people in 2022, because we have certain liberties, all right, not freedoms, but liberties, our people believe that we're free. All right, and they're under this impression that all is well. But those who are spiritual, all right, those who have the spirit of discernment through the spirit, they can understand that this is not our rest. All right, that we're not in our rest. We're not in our glory. We're still in a yoke. All right, we're still in subjection as a nation of people. This is why they make an effort to prop up these Negroes that they give millions of dollars to make you forget about the average lifestyle of the members of your people. You would think that a nation that literally built some of the most important buildings in this place would be at least appreciated. But we understand that we were brought here, all right, for our shame. All right, we were brought here to serve. All right, as a matter of fact, let's go to the curses. Because you got Vocab Malone saying that this don't fit us, right? What about this? All right, bear with me. Bear with me. This is, come on, man. This is Deuteronomy 28:30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Is this not what happened to us? You got guys like Vocab Malone who gonna hop on YouTube, all right, and really at this point he's just making money. He's just selling books and classes and streams and taking donations, all right, because everything that he done brought out done been cut to sunder. But does this not fit our people that built houses? When you deal with the White House, all right, our people built that house, and the only time they were in it was for a service to serve other nations. And it took centuries for Jake to even get in there in any other capacity outside of being a gardener or a butler or a cook. But then you have these guys who will say that these curses don't fit our people. We literally built some of the most important buildings in this establishment, in this country. Man, this is crazy. This is crazy. All right, it says the report says slaves would have done the hard work, like sawing logs and moving stones, as well as working at quarries to get raw materials. They were also responsible for more skilled labor like plastering, painting, and carpentry. All right, and a lot of our people don't know this, man. We were highly skilled in certain trades. All right, and when we got integrated with these other nations, they stopped teaching us trades. Our nation, right after chattel slavery, we were good at farming land, cultivating land. We were good with dealing with livestock. We were good with carpentry. All right. We were good with painting. We had actual skills. You had men that were good with iron. And through the process of time, when we got integrated into, even when you deal with segregation, our schools, our segregated schools, we were taught trades. Because our people understood that a lot of our people wouldn't make it to be employed in these other higher education systems. So what they would do is in your high school or your middle school, you'd be learning a trade. And when we got integrated, they took those things away from us, making us more and more dependent upon them and less skilled as a nation of people. Now, I want to go down to the next one. All right. Now, check this out, right? No, this ain't the one I'm looking for. Slovakia. Here we go. Here we go. Let's go. The Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. All right. The Smithsonian Institution, built between 1847 and 1855, is made from red sandstone, which was quarried by slaves. All right. So these are the institutions of learning that we're getting into now. And these were made by, these were contracted, if you will. All right. Slaves were used. So in essence, Jake had a part in building these things, these educational institutions. All right. And don't think for a moment that all our people did was the simple menial work. All right. Again, when you go into what they said about the Capitol, all right, our people had skilled labor. All right. So let's continue. It says the Smithsonian Institution, built between 1847 and 1855, is made from red sandstone, which was quarried by slaves. It's thought the slaves were owned by Martha Washington, former President George Washington's wife. Unlike the White House and the Capitol, slaves didn't work on the actual building of the institution. So Jake had to beat the rocks up, all right, for them to build these institutions. All right. Now let's go to another one, because this ain't the only one. Check this out. Wall Street. Wall Street was named after an actual wall, which slaves built in 1653. There also used to be a slave market in Wall Street that was one of the largest in the country in the 1700s. For all of those people who still believe that slavery only happened in the South, all right. Now, most scholars will tell you that it happened all across the country. All right. But again, there's this general understanding that slavery only happened for the most part in the South. And that's not true. All right. These are very popular, even to this day, very popular. How should I say this? Very popular sites in America. When people come to visit America out of the States, when international people come visit here, these are some of the places they come to visit, and they never take into account or consider the labor of our people in these buildings that they go to and they take pictures of. All right, now let's go to this. The Trinity Church in New York. Trinity Church's architects rented slaves to build the church. The slaves helped construct the first version of the church, which was finished in 1698 and burned down in 1776. The slave owners were paid for the work done. So Jake was not paid, because again, Jake was owned by someone else. And this goes into, all right, Jake building a house that they can't dwell in. All right, because at a large portion of this history, Jake couldn't even go into the same churches as Edomites. Keep these things in mind. All right, the scriptures talk about that. All right, this is Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will teach, and they will tell thee. All right, and how are we doing that? Through the history. All right, for those whose grandmothers or grandfathers are still alive, you can have a conversation with them, and they'll tell you. They'll make you aware and make you consider the way they had to grow up and live, because that's how the world was. And we're telling our people that these things go back to the scriptures. All right. The Lord said that we would build houses. All right. And not dwell in them. And what we're looking at are multiple monuments that at one point in time, even though Jake built it, they weren't allowed in it. All right. So I'm going to hold 28 and 30, and we're going to continue. I'm not sure what this building is. All right. It says Francis Tavern was built in 1719 and is one of the oldest buildings in Manhattan. The New York Historical Society says it was built by slaves, along with New York's first prison and hospital. But there aren't many details on the process. All right. And Jake couldn't go to the same hospitals. So in essence, they built a building they weren't allowed into. OK, now let me see if I can find some more notable ones. Some of these are some that only Edomites will really know about. Check this out. Harvard Law School in Massachusetts. Harvard Law School, built in 1817, was funded by Isaac Royal Jr., a slave owner. A lot of his wealth came from the African slaves he had working on sugar plantations and farms. All right. So the Harvard Law School, the building was built by you Negroes. All right. And I imagine Latinos and Native Americans were in the mix at some point. And this is just a highlight of what our people have actually been through. And it all goes back to the curses. I want that to be understood. All right. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemal Shai. That again, these people made no account of our labors, man. And they want us in 2022 to forget about our people had to live like this, man. Some of them made it to 40. Some of them made it to 50. Some of them made it to 60 and 70 and 80. And this was their life. This was their whole life, having babies in these type of situations. A grown man with children having to get on the sidewalk and look down when another man passed. Knowing that your people built certain buildings that you weren't allowed into. In 2017, the school unveiled a plaque to remember the slavery money that went into building the law school. There are no names for the slaves on the plaque because the identities of the royals' slaves are not known. So all they give you is a plaque. And then when Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans talk about reparations, they act like it's the worst thing in the world. This should be enough for the average Jake to consider, all right, where we are right now, and that this is not our rest. And what I mean by that is we're talking about our people who built this place, literally built this place. And in 2022, Jake is still having to say his life matter. Now, we know it's all a psyop. You know, we know that BLM is paid, bought and paid for, all right, by George Soros and other Edomites who are creating this controlled opposition. However, all right, our people are still in a destitute state. And to think about all of these things that our people built back then and how they have to live now, and the persecution, all right, and the mockery that our people have to endure now, knowing that our people literally physically built this place, should make you angry. It should make you upset. But as the scriptures say, is Ecclesiastes 7:7. And it reads, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. All right. And a gift has destroyed 2/3 of our people's hearts because they got jobs now. All right. They can go to the club on Saturday and Sunday. They don't actually have to live at Master Plantation. They just got to drive to it now. Now they think that they're free. So it's destroyed their understanding that we're still under a form of oppression. As a nation of people, when you have to go ask another nation of people permission to do anything, you're in subjection. That is a form of oppression. The fact that you as a nation of people have literally physically built this place, and other people can come here and get more value out of this place than your people on average, should tell you something about where we are in society. Let's go back to it. And Lord willing, I'll put this in the description. Now, I've been to this place before, all right? And this was a beautiful, called Allah Yahweh Shai. This is Castillo de San Marcos Fort in Florida. Castillo de San Marcos, which is the oldest masonry fort in the U.S., was built in part by enslaved Native Americans. For those who believe that the Native Americans don't fall under the curses. For Spanish forces, they worked in tough conditions for about 25 years in the 17th century to build the fortress. And this thing is huge. So this is a perfect example. Let's go to this, man. Let's go to this. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 and verse 33. All right. And it reads, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. And you have to keep in mind that the children of Israel and the children of Judah, all right, were not oppressed together in Babylon, all right, and they weren't oppressed together during the Greeks and the Romans because that was just the southern kingdom. So that points to another captivity that Israel and Judah would need to be redeemed from. All right, so I'm going to read 34. It says, their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name. He shall throughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. And again, we have to keep in mind that the children of Israel and the children of Judah were not oppressed in Babylon. That was the southern kingdom that went into the old ancient Babylonian captivity. All right, so let's go back to this again. So this fort is in St. Augustine, Florida. All right, and it says again, Castillo de San Marcos, which is the oldest masonry fort in the U.S., was built in part by enslaved Native Americans for Spanish forces. All right, so them Spaniards, all right, them damn Spaniards. And those are just Edomites from Spain. But this highlights that Israel and Judah were oppressed together. Okay, now here goes another one that I want to point out. This is Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. All right, in 1838, Jesuit priest who were the founders of Georgetown University, sold 272 slaves and used the money, which today is worth about $3.3 million, to pay off debts and build its campus. To offset some of the damage in 2016, the university, look at this, it says to offset some of the damage in 2016, the university provided preferential administration to the descendants of the slaves who had been sold. All right, which is compared to the 3.3 million. All right, this is crazy. Compared to the 3.3 million they made off our people, the only thing that they're gonna do is give Jake's descendants preferential treatment, which basically means some form of free class or free scholarship or some kind of ability to go to the school for free or some sort of, but it's not worth the amount of money that their people had to work for ultimately. And that's why at this point, there's no reparations that can pay back the blood of our people, man. All right, that's a whole nother situation within itself, but you can never repay that back. And to even attempt to do that is a form of disrespect. Is to say that our people's lives can be bought. I think there was one more I wanted to point to. Now, they got the University of North Carolina, Monticello in Virginia, which is Thomas Jefferson's home. All right, we all know how he got down, or we should. All right, Montpelier in Virginia, which is the land owned by the family of former President James Madison. All right, and the list goes on, man. Mount Vernon, slaves built George Washington's home, of course. All right. But I just wanted to go through that through the spirit because I saw that clip, and I actually wanted to grab the article to actually highlight and get some of the details of this information. All right, to bring this out again, because again, the scriptures talk about bringing the past to mind and preparing for the search of thy fathers. All right. And we understand now why the Lord did this to us, that even with everything we've went through as a nation of people, it's a form of mercy compared to what we actually deserve for what we did to the Lord. But again, the Lord is not going to leave Esau, Edom altogether unpunished. All right. This is Jeremiah 49:12. For thus saith the Lord, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. And art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. All right. Now the cup is about to be passed to Esau, Edom, for all of his transgressions. All right. Verse 13. For I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord, that Basra shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual waste. So the Lord is returning Esau's his wickedness upon his own head. He allowed Esau to do this for a portion of time. He set his bounds that he cannot pass, and now it's time for him to pay back what he's done. And that's not just the elites. All right. When the Lord attacked Egypt, when the Lord hit Egypt with plagues, it wasn't just Pharaoh. All right. It was the common Egyptian as well. There's Wisdom of Solomon 18:11. The master and the servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. So even the average member of Egypt was hit with those plagues. The same thing is about to happen to the Edomites. All right. The so-called white man as a nation of people. There are some of our people that may look like Edomites, but they go back to Israelites. But concerning the nation of Edom, the actual seed of Esau, Edom, all right, they're known as the so-called white man as a nation of people today. Their judgment is about to be upon them. All right, and that's why the scriptures say this. And it's not just their elites. All right, Lamentation chapter 4, and I'll end it with this in verse 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken, and shalt make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. All right, so with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word, in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.